Alright, the second phase banners are near and we're going to be seeing an Ayato and Cyno rerun. So the big question is, should you pull or should you skip? Now then, let us start off with Ayato. So, Ayato is a 5-star Hydro Sword user from Inazuma. His auto attack is a simple 5-hit strike that does physical damage. His elemental skill leaves a clone behind, which puts him in a state where his normal attacks are converted into quick slashes that deal AoE Hydro damage. Not to be confused with his auto attacks because the elemental skill does have its own talent multiplier. He also gains a stack mechanic where he gains 1 Namisen stack every time his attacks hit an enemy with a maximum of 4 stacks. For every stacks he has, his slashes will deal additional damage based on his max HP. This state lasts for 6 seconds and he cannot use charge or plunging attacks. Ayato's elemental burst creates a field of rain where raindrops will fall on any enemy within its range, dealing AoE Hydro damage. Any character standing in the field will gain a normal attack damage bonus. An interesting note about this ability is that it has an 18-second duration with a 20-second cooldown, but Ayato's burst animation is 2 seconds long. What this means is that his burst cooldown will start the moment that the animation plays, so he essentially has infinite uptime on his burst given that he has enough energy recharge. His Ascension 1 will give him 2 Namisen stacks by default every time he uses his elemental skill, and if his illusion explodes, it will give him the maximum stack. His Ascension 4 will regenerate 2 energy per second if he is not on field, and his energy is less than 40. Now, thoughts? So Ayato belongs to the Hydro class, which means there is a lot of competition to be had. The closest comparison would be the likes of Tartaglia. While Tartaglia is more focused on having a strong on-field Hydro application from his elemental skill and his burst doing a good amount of damage, Ayato trades off some personal damage for an off-field presence with his elemental burst. Because with Tartaglia, if you want to play him effectively, you need to know how long you are able to stay on field with his skill active before you need to turn it off if you want to play it in the most optimal way or the most usable way in a single rotation, and this may be unfun to some people. On the other hand, Ayato is the more casual friendly Hydro character whose skill lasts for a fixed duration and his abilities work in a rather simple manner. To me, Ayato feels like a combination of an off-field Hydro applicator like Xingqiu and an on-field Hydro applicator like Tartaglia because he can apply Hydro both on-field and off-field. Though, if you do have other Hydro characters in your account like Xingqiu, Yelan, Kokomi, or Tartaglia himself, even Neuvillette, it is quite hard to justify pulling for him simply because there are better options. However, I beg to differ because I feel like his simplistic design is his best selling point. So with Ayato, you don't really have to manage your cooldowns like Tartaglia since his skill does have a fixed duration. Plus, you could also use him as an off-field Hydro applicator with his elemental burst if you want to, and I think his flexibility in this kind of playstyles is what makes him appealing. I personally think that pulling for him is really a matter of preference or personal preference at the end of the day, and it's really up to the individual. If I were to nitpick, I don't really like how long his burst animation is. Because for me, I've played Ayato on some of my viewers' account and I feel like it takes so long that I have to wait so long for the animation to finish before I can really move again. And Ayato players, maybe you can confirm this, and I'm not too sure if this is a thing, but I feel like Ayato gets locked in place even after his burst animation is done. Like the 2 seconds of animation, the zoom in animation is done, he goes Kamisato Ryu, Suiyu, and for some reason, like I can't move my Ayato for like half a second, even if the animation's already done. So any Ayato players, can you confirm me on this in the comments? Thank you very much. Otherwise, I will still be pulling for him because I just love his elemental skill slashes. Like you turn that on and he goes swoosh, 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 and there's something about it that's just really cool. And to be fair, I do have his sister, so may as well, right? So to close things off with Ayato, I think meta-wise, he doesn't actually add that much value to any accounts unless you really don't have any other Hydro options that I've mentioned just now. Because in terms of like the meta, right, in terms of teams like International or certain Bloom teams, any sort of Hydro teams, even the likes of Freeze, he does have his use there, but I think the problem with that is that there are better options out there like, Xingqiu, Yelan, Kokomi, etc, etc. But at the end of the day, it's entirely up to you. Now then, we close the books with Ayato and let us move on to the second character in the other half, Cyno. So Cyno is a 5-star Electro Polam character from Sumeru. His auto attacks does a 4-hit combo which does physical, once again nothing to see here, and his elemental skill has 2 different forms. When he's not in his burst, Cyno does a simple dash through enemy dealing electro damage with an extended cooldown, or rather a 7-8 second cooldown. When he is in his burst, Cyno will do a slam which does AoE electro damage in a very small radius. So his elemental burst puts Cyno in a special state where his normal charge plunging attacks are going to be converted into electro damage, to do electro damage rather, and this infusion cannot be overridden, however it will be lost if Cyno is swapped off. He also gains 100 elemental mastery and a little bit of interrupt resist. Cyno's Ascension 1 gives him the Endseer stance, which makes this huge eye icon appear every 4 seconds if he is in his elemental burst. Using his skill when the eye is on the screen will have its damage increase, and there'll be more bolts spawn which does even more electro damage. Doing this will also increase his burst duration by 4 seconds to a maximum of 8 seconds. Cyno's Ascension 4 increases the damage done by his normal attacks in his burst and the bolts that he gets from his Ascension 1 based on his elemental mastery. So, my thoughts on him. Let's start off with a little bit of a funny story. So, Cyno was first released back in version 3.0, right? You know, that was when Sumeru was released, and the first half we had like Tenari, and the second half we had like Cyno, and Candice happened to be rated up. She was a new 4-star. So I tried pulling for a Constellation 6 Candice, and I didn't really care whether I win 50-50 or not. Well, you probably knew the result. I somehow won 50-50 and I got Cyno. I tried him out a little bit in a test run at the time, and I even built my own Cyno. I didn't really like him back then because he felt very lackluster to play. However, things changed a lot. Like, everything changed when Nahida got released in version, I believe was it 3.2, because the problem with playing Cyno back then is that, first of all, he wasn't made to be played in any of the old Electro teams. Granted that Electro before Sumeru came out wasn't really that great because we didn't really have Dendro, and even if it was clear that he was made to be run with like a Quick Bloom team or like any one of those Dendro teams, the Dendro supports we've had at the time wasn't really good enough for his playstyle. Like back then we had Dendro Traveler and Collei, since Tinari isn't exactly a support. So Dendro Traveler's burst, the lamp, is usually used first in a regular rotation just so that you can infuse the lamp with elements like Hydro or Electro, because you don't want the lamp to blow up if, say, the enemy accidentally hits the lamp with Pyro, because with the interaction with the Traveler's lamp, if you were to hit the lamp with Hydro, it increases the range. If you were hitting the lamp with Electro, it makes it hit faster, and if you hit it with Pyro, it'll just blow up and do big Dendro damage, which you don't really want to do. And especially without Constellation 2, the lamp will only last for 12 seconds, and let's say you use his lamp as the first character in the rotation, that's even considering that we even swap to Cyno and use his burst. So by the time you get to Cyno, the duration is way shorter than 12 seconds. However, this problem is completely solved with Nahida because her elemental skill lasts for 25 seconds, which is more than enough to last the entirety of Cyno's burst duration. And that is issue number 1. If you really want Cyno to work, his best team, well, in fact, his only team revolves around Dendro, whether it be Quick Bloom, which is Quicken Hyper Bloom, or Hyper Bloom itself, or Aggravate. And in order to make this work, you need a really good Dendro support to pair him up with. At the moment, his best Dendro supports are both Nahida and Baizhu, which are both 5 stars. As I've mentioned just now, Nahida's elemental skill lasts for a very long time and it's perfect for Cyno, plus her elemental burst will give an EM buff to the active character based on who has the highest elemental mastery in the party. So if you were to run a cookie with 4 Gilded Dreams and you trigger the Gilded effect, the EM buff for Cyno will be even higher. This also acts as a damage buff since his Aggravate and Hyper Bloom will deal more damage overall as they gain extra scaling from elemental mastery. On the other hand, we have Baizhu. So Baizhu is a more defensive option where his elemental skill provides a team-wide heal, and his burst will give like a weak shield to the active character and refresh every certain interval with a little bit of healing. Baizhu's Ascension 4 also buffs any Dendro reactions damage based on his max HP. I put the numbers in a calculator site that I use, and the buff isn't really as good as Nahida's elemental mastery buff from her burst, but from what I saw, it was roughly like a 10% damage loss at best, assuming you have like a 50k max HP Baizhu, but otherwise it's still a nice trade-off to have for survivability. Aside from these 2 Dendro supports, you can really use other options like Dendro Traveler or Collei or Yao Yao, but after looking at Kuching Main's guide, I actually tested this out in the Abyss and I didn't really like how it feels. So like, out of these 3 options, Dendro Traveler is probably the best out of all of them, and that's if you even have C2, because Dendro Traveler's Constellation 2 adds 3 seconds to his burst, making it from 12 seconds to 15 seconds, which allows your Cyno to take advantage of that uptime. And aside from Dendro supports, one more thing I would like to talk about is artifacts, specifically Thundering Fury versus non-Thundering Fury Cyno. As some of you may know, Cyno was very likely designed with the Thundering Fury artifact set in mind, since he does use his elemental skill quite a lot, and the 4-piece Thundering Fury effect reduces the skill cooldown if the character triggers any electro reaction. I initially gave my Cyno the 4-piece Gilded Dreams, but I didn't really like how I just couldn't get enough energy in a single rotation so that I can use burst by the time it's his turn again. So eventually I kind of gave him my spare Thundering Fury pieces from my Kaching, and I will gladly take that damage loss any day of the week. Because the best part about Thundering Fury is that you need to learn a unique combo for Thundering Fury alone, and to me at least it makes it fun. And plus, Thundering Fury, right, the 4-piece effect allows you to trigger more of Cyno's skill, which in turn will generate more energy, thus decreasing his overall ER requirements by a decent amount. According to Kaching Main's guide over on their site for Cyno, Thundering Fury can reduce Cyno's ER requirement by, let's say, an estimate of 10 to 20% depending on what kind of team you run, and this allows you to focus on getting more offensive stats such as Elemental Mastery, Attack Percent, Crit Rate or Crit Damage rather than focus on Energy Recharge. To add things off, it's just so fun to spam his skill and just go Unga Bunga. Like every time I play Cyno, I just try to play in the most optimal rotation. I don't even look at what enemy I'm hitting. I'm really just like, my eyes is just glued on the cooldown, just watching the Thundering Fury cooldown thing just bling 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 and reset. I just try to mash E as hard as I can or as fast as I can just to get all the procs up. So, if you are a Cyno owner and you haven't tried Thundering Fury on him, I highly recommend that you spend some time to farm a decent 4-piece, and it will quite literally change the way you play your Cyno. Overall, I don't really recommend getting Cyno if you don't have either Nahida, Baizhu or Dendro Traveler at Constellation 2 if you really don't want to have a hard time of using it. You can definitely use other options like Yao Yao or Kole, however the uptime on their skill is much shorter when compared to the likes of the other 3 options that I just mentioned, and you're not going to be triggering Thundering Fury as often as you like, and it doesn't really feel that good to use. To sum things up, both Ayato and Cyno are not really must pulls in terms of meta, but they do offer some variety in the teams that we have today. Between the two, I would say Cyno is cooler because of his special eye mechanic with the timing, while Ayato is the more versatile option. So, I hope you find this video informative enough to help you make your decision on your future pulls, and as always, give it a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more, and if you're going for either of these characters, let us know down in the comments below on why you are doing so. And for the Ayato and Cyno mains, feel free to share your thoughts and facts in the comments section on how your respective mains have been treating you in your journey for Genshin. And if you want to sell these characters or you want to take this chance to sell your mains to other people who may be watching the video, now is your time to shine. Anyways, I wish you guys the best of luck in your future summons, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.